Hi, everyone. Welcome to Rebecca and Rebecca. My name is Rebecca Yager. I'm coming to you from Dallas, Texas. And my partner in crime over there is Rebecca Reed, coming from her farm in Indiana. How's it going, Rebecca?
Hi, good. How you doing?
Doing fine. Doing good today. Weather is still warm here in Dallas as we record
Ah,
this.
not so much here. I mean, today it's chilly. It was only 34 or something this morning when we got up, but this weekend's supposed to be in the 60s and 70s, so we haven't given up yet on
Yeah.
warmer weather.
Yeah, we're the same. We're going to be in the 80s this weekend. Now, of course, by the time this interview really goes live, we'll both probably be a little chillier than we are now. But
True.
today we are so excited. This is, by the way, we're coming to the end of our very first year of Rebecca and Rebecca. This is our final book review of 2022, and we are scheduling and excited about what's coming in 2023. But today we are talking about The Mistletoe Countess by Pepper Basham. And I think we are ending this year on a high note.
I would agree.
All right. Well, let's hear about the book first so people know what book we're talking about, and we'll then give our thoughts.
All right. The back cover copy reads as follows. Will the magic of Christmas bring these two newlyweds closer together? Or will the ghosts of the past lead them into a destructive discovery from which not even a Dickens Christmas can save them? Mistletoe is beautiful and dangerous, much like the woman from Lord Frederick Percy's past. So when he turns over a new leaf and arranges to marry for his estate instead of his heart, he never expects the wrong bride to be the right choice. Gracelyn Ferguson never expected to take her elder sister's place as a Christmas bride. But when she's thrust into the choice, she will trust in her faithful novels and overactive imagination to help her not only win Frederick's heart, but also to solve the murder mystery of Havensbrook Hall before the ghosts from Frederick's past ruin her fairy tale future.
So this is a historical romance, a little bit of suspense, a little bit of mystery thrown in. And just off the top, I have to say it was such a fun book, so fun to read. Um, the characters of Gracelyn and Lord Frederick Percy, I think were interesting because they were both the second children, not expected to do anything in this time frame, this era, where it was always the eldest child that had to carry on the family legacy. And these two never expected to be in the positions they were in, and both of them had to be thrust into unexpected positions for their families.
Yeah, it's they were such refreshing characters, especially Gracelyn. She just had that natural buoyancy, I think, of a middle child or a youngest child, really, not the middle so much, but she just she was so positive, so um effusive, and so bookish. But she loved just experiences, and whether they were come from fiction novels or they came from real life, it didn't make any difference to her. She embraced everything with that almost childlike, um just, if what do I want to say, like imagination and effervescence that little kids, have. And she just never gave that up, even though she's not a little kid by any stretch. Um, but yeah, I just loved her character. And Frederick is, he kind of starts out like um, the typical British, royalty, not royalty, I guess, but what is that?
Lord.
Gentry? Is that his gentry? But he does not stay that way. And I just love the transformation that, being in Graceland's presence kind of brings to him,
Mhm.
and his sadness and his past, as it were.
Yeah, he's carrying a heavy weight on his shoulders as the story opens. But back to Grace, she's a redhead, and that redhead is indicative of her character. Like you said, she's very spunky and very. I wish I had her imagination. I love that all she wanted to do was read books and just get lost in the world of books. But her love of the books, of both fiction and nonfiction, is what propels her forward as she's um, falls into the situation where she ends up marrying Frederick. Um, on that, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, well, you know,
Keep going.
I just thought that I think the things I loved most about this story were the fact that um, she was herself no matter what, and herself was such, it was just, she was so positive, as I mentioned already, but she was also like her namesake. This book was, I wrote in an interview that this book was chock full of grace with a lowercase g and grace with an uppercase g, because it's like the whole idea of the book is about grace and giving forgiveness for your past, and being okay with who you are, because
Mhm.
that's who God created you to be. And they marry um, out of a sense of duty. However, they really married for love. They just didn't know it. And I thought that was just such a great premise for Pepper to use here, is that sometimes doing what's right or expected can also be the best, and turn out, you get these rewards that you don't know you're going to get. And I think that she just shows that so well. Um, I also liked that there was no contrived breakup. This is a romance, and
Mhm.
the passion and the emotion throughout is there. There's no doubt that they have that, feelings for each other, even from the very beginning, before they were
Mhm.
going to be married.
Mhm.
It was there, and I just loved how Pepper carried that through, and didn't contrive to change, to break them apart in the ways many romance books do, but let them, have that. Uh, yes, they fight and they have arguments, and there is a time where they, have a falling apart for a bit, but it's not that, well, we have to break them up thing. So what can we do that's not really, doesn't really make sense, but we have to do it because that's just how romances are. She didn't do that, and I like that.
I loved in this, even though the time frame of the story is what, 3 weeks, maybe a month long, but it felt like they fell in love slowly. It wasn't this, oh, love, we're in love. It really, the way Pepper developed their romance. And of course they were married,
Yeah.
again, by duty, and how they fell in love. And I just loved how they fell in love on the page, and how they
Hmm.
really, said, okay, we're just going to be friends. We're doing this for duty. We like each other, because at first they thought they were going to be brother-in-law, sister-in-law, because Frederick was supposed to marry Grace's older sister. And
Hmm.
we are not going to do any spoilers with how that didn't come to be, but it turns out that, Grace had to take her sister's place and marry Frederick. But it just, the way they developed their love story from the friendship, from what they thought they were going to be, was just probably one of my favorite parts for the romance thread. Was just done so well.
I agree. I mean, it's just that they honored each other in everything they did, whether they thought they were going to fall in love or not. It was still about honor, and they both had that sense of honor that followed through. It manifested differently for each of them, but they still were both very honorable people. And
Mhm.
I think that, and how they work together
Mhm.
to serve the interests that they've decided are important really makes it, and in just their relationship so unique and interesting.
Um, And you talked about like Grace staying pretty much true to herself, although she did have concerns because she's marrying this British lord, and now she's going to be Lady Astley of Havensbrook Hall, and she's like, I never trained for this. That's my sister. She knows how to act like a lady. I don't, and so she tries, but she doesn't ever go away from who she is, and she wins over the staff at Havensbrook Hall. Brandon was their butler, I guess would
Yeah, I
be his
think
his
so.
title. And Brandon, again, getting into some of the other characters in the book, the way she wins him over, when he's this very precise, very British, head of the household kind of things, and she just has this charm because of who she is, and just changes the whole character of this very sad home that she has to go to
Yeah.
with a very stern mother-in-law too.
Yes, the mother-in-law. That part too was also, another, honestly, if as a writer, to if I was thinking about this story as a, what would I look at, for as examples of what I could use myself. I think, just the way she put these characters together because they all have flaws, some more obvious than others, but none of them is irredeemable.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the it seems like an insurmountable task to Grace to ever be able to deal with this mother-in-law because she is just crotchety. I mean, you talk about Dickens, she would be Scrooge, right?
Yeah,
This mother-in-law.
at his
So,
worst.
how do you deal with Scrooge? I mean, that's hard, because he's just so negative and she's so positive. So it's like boom, they're butting heads because they have such totally opposite personalities and they rub each other the wrong way, but Grace is still Grace. And just that it's just the way she is and she can't help but do something. And I feel like the way she does it is still very Grace like,
Hmm.
you know, because she doesn't really pander to her
Oh no.
exactly. I mean, it's just kind of it's an interesting development, let's
Mhm.
to say the least. And the sister, I love, or is it the aunt? The aunt, that's who it is, who comes to visit, and then
Yes.
yeah, I loved the aunt as
Yeah.
well. She
Yeah.
was she was charming.
Well, she's the bright spot in Frederick's life because, his mother has become so embittered. And the mother, Lady Maria, has lost her husband, lost her eldest son, and is so bitter. I mean, just sourpuss. And her sister, the aunt that comes and visits, is a bright spot and is helps Grace and keeps Frederick like, okay. So there were good characters all through this that were just sprinkled in,
Yep.
but just brought so much life to the story. It's like I'm envisioning, you know, this whole world that Frederick lives in, that Grace is being thrust into from an American going into, this British household. So I thought it was well done with
We
that.
should probably say too, this is an early
Mhm.
1900s
Yeah,
setting. So it's not your typical, it's not Regency, it's
right,
not Victorian.
right.
So you have some modern conveniences in there. You've got motor cars, for instance, which
Hmm.
creates a whole fun
Hmm.
little aspect of it. And there's some other things that are the little modern things that you don't see in your typical Regency or Victorian
Yeah,
era that just give this a little bit of a subtle twist and make it just that much more unique and fun
yeah.
to read.
It was a fun time period because to talk about, Frederick's trying to bring like electricity into the house, but you go into his mother's room and she's still got the lanterns and won't go to electricity. And I understand that people were frightened of electricity at first, you know, when it first came about. It's almost the Downton Abbey era, maybe a little
Yeah.
before when Downton Abbey started. So, you can kind of picture that. It was a fun time frame, and I'm glad you brought that up. The motor cars did affect. There's a fun scene with the motor car, or scary scene. There was a mystery with this book, though. We can't forget
Yes.
that. We're on that. And it's Grace's spunk and her imagination and her, reading enough Sherlock Holmes that she's like, we can solve this. We've got to figure this out. We're going to do this, Frederick. And I think sometimes
Yeah.
he's just hanging on to her, being dragged along by her throughout
Yeah.
the story. But then finally he catches her spirit. Her spirit is just, you know, catchy.
Yeah,
You
it
can have.
is. And yeah, you're right. The mystery adds quite a lot of fun um and tension to the story because it is there is danger and there is, there's a lot of um crisis moments, so to speak. But you can never escape the whole effervescence of Grace that just takes all of those dark things and flips them on their head. I
Mm.
feel like.
Hmm. Hmm. It did, and the mystery, yeah, is fun but serious, and it adds a nice twist to this book, and really adds to it more than just, I think the book could have stood on its own with just the romance developing, but the way they had to work together, Frederick and Grace, to solve this mystery, which is the whole cloud that hangs over Havensbrook Hall,
Mm-hmm.
there where they're living, and how to bring life, back into this dark, mysterious English manor.
Mm.
Can
Right.
you picture the fog?
Right.
Around
Yeah,
it.
and the setting is gorgeous. I mean, Pepper does a great job of getting us from the US to this kind of remote area of England near the coast, and you get to see that gorgeous scenery, and how Pepper, her heroine, Grace falls in love with that area too. And I think that's so another thing about it that I like. It's like, a lot of times you have the heroine from America going to England, and they have a hard time maybe grasping the setting and the people. They don't understand them. They don't really like them. They kind of pine for home and stuff. And, Grace just embraces the whole adventure and embraces the people that are there and the setting of the kind of mysterious, misty moors and the cliffs and the sea and all of that is just um it's just gorgeous, how she kind of feels at home there and how she decides. It's almost like it's in her head. She decides like, this is my home, I'm going to love it.
Mhm.
um and she just embraces that whole situation.
Mhm.
Whereas a lot of times, the heroines do not do that. And so we get a little bit more of a doom and gloom kind of outlook, which they
Mhm.
usually change as the book progresses, but we really
Right.
never see that with Grace. So,
But it was a nice twist because you saw, like you said, all the scenery, the great description that Pepper does, and it's all through Grace's eyes because it's all new to her. So therefore, we as a reader were brought along with that. And as a writer, that is something we should study. The way description's hard for me personally, so I really love any book I can study on good description, and all through Grace's eyes. And you're right, Grace was determined to. This is my home now. This is the situation. I'm going to make the best of it. And it, like you said, so many times it's been, oh, I don't want to be here, blah, blah, blah. Or like we talked about with the romance, you know, there wasn't a breakup that needed to happen. There wasn't, it was just it felt true to life, I guess, true to, how hopefully people would really react in that situation. Grace is determined. She's spunky. Nothing gets her down. It gets her into a little trouble once in a while, but that's all the fun of this book. But in the long run, she just changes the whole character of that household,
mhm.
puts up that huge Christmas tree in the middle of the Great Hall. And, they hadn't decorated for Christmas in a long time. So she, you know, takes everyone from Scrooge to, the Cratchits, and they're
Yeah,
all happy again. And,
right.
And but it done in a realistic kind of way. You could see this happening. You believe
Mhm.
Grace, you believe who she is. Yeah.
Right. It's not an overnight transition. It's
Hmm.
a very slow, subtle kind of, well, one servant kind of gets on board and then another one, and they kind of, it's not like they instantly love her,
Right.
so that's very realistically done. And just the small things that Grace does as part of her being herself is kind of what wins everybody over. And I think that's what's cool, because she doesn't set out. I mean, it's not that she doesn't think about how am I gonna, win these servants over, but it's nothing that she doesn't bribe them. She doesn't, do any of those kinds of things. It's all just how she is and who she is that bring them around.
Right.
So yeah, it's great to see the cooperation that ends up going on toward the end, and how she drags the is it the chauffeur that she drags into her adventure to
Yes.
later
Oh,
on it when she's solving the mystery, and
yeah.
all those kind of things. And it's just so funny um to watch how these people just they do things they wouldn't normally do
Yeah.
just because she asked them to.
Right. Right. I mean, she just pulls everyone along, and it's such a fun ride. So, needless to say, I think both you and I really, really loved this book. I give it 5 stars
I
easily,
do too.
10 stars.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything else I would change. I could not recommend a change. There's nothing I would change about this book.
Yeah, done so well. And the exciting news, and I have to look at my notes, there is a sequel to this book coming on February 1st of 2023 called The Cairo Curse. And it takes the characters of Grace and Frederick, and they finally get to go on their honeymoon, which they didn't get a chance to in Mistletoe Countess. And so they find some more misadventures on their honeymoon. And the write-up, oh, yeah, Clue, and I remember the board game Clue or the movie Clue meets Indiana Jones is this one. So I can't wait.
I can't wait either. Sounds fantastic.
So yeah, we're definitely gonna pick that one up. And if you haven't read Mistletoe Countess came out last year, but definitely worth having in your library. Definitely worth one of those you need to reread every year around Christmas because it will just fill your heart, and it's so much fun. Just to note that Pepper has another book coming out November 15th called Authentically Izzy. Um, and then the Cairo Curse, the sequel to this one, comes out in February. We are excited. We're going to talk to Pepper on our next episode so we can find out how she thinks of these wonderful characters and how she thinks of these great plot lines with this. But needless to say, I think we highly recommend The Mistletoe Countess.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to miss Pepper's interview, because I guarantee you it will be exciting and interesting and full of her. She has a personality very much like Grace's, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Yeah.
So it'll
Mhm.
be fun.
Yeah, yeah, just one of the nicest people around, and so we look forward to letting y'all get to know her better. But meanwhile, go read The Mistletoe Countess. It's worth it. If you have it, read it again. It's worth
Yep.
the read again and stuff. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time with Pepper as our interview. So y'all take care.
Bye.